The great St. Anthony of the Desert, the first monk of the Egyptian desert, St. Anthony the Great, who lived like an angel on earth. He lived 40 years in the desert. Forgive me for those who last 2 or 3 weeks ago we spoke about this, but this is exactly, he said something which is exactly what you've just brought forth. He literally went out into the eastern desert, the Sinai desert, and he lived alone, except for the crocodiles and lions that were in the desert. And literally went into a cave and he abandoned all men. This was in the 3rd century. The Divine Mother came, touched her foot on the corner of the cave, and a spring came forth. So he drank the water that issued forth from the mercy of the Divine Mother. Even to this day, the monastery that's at the foot of the mountain, that stream is still feeding and giving water to the monks. Then every 2 or 3 days, literally a dove would come from heaven with a warm loaf of bread. So for decades, he just lived eating literally manna from heaven. And he healed the sick. He raised people from the dead. He literally was like what Jesus had said, some will come after me who will do greater things than I do. And so what happened was, at the end of his life, some disciples were around, and they said to him, "Oh Father, Holy Father, can you give us some glimmer, some teaching that we might follow after and hold this teaching and attain a small aspect of your glory and greatness?" And he said, "I'll tell you what you do, and if you do this one thing, you'll surpass me." So of course they said, tell us, tell us. And the great St. Anthony said, "When you fall, you rise. When you fall, you rise. When you fall, you rise." In life, something knocks us down, we get up, shake the dirt off, go back at it. Yeah. And that's the key to life. But sometimes the medicine is bitter. And so there you are. So anyone else have it? You want to take a break, or you want to? Yes.
You know, there's so much sorrow in the world now. There's so much, I mean, it's been going on for the beginning of time. Romans getting this empire, and the next guy, the next guy. And there's just so much, when you talk about bringing in the sorrow, there's more, you know, the wall and the hatred and the pushing back.
Right.
It seems like, does God, is he like just like screaming at us now?
Yeah.
Or what's going on here? Because it just seems like it's just exploded with pain and suffering.
It's true. But you know, if you look at history, and this same question, I was with some really Himalayan masters. Lucky enough they could speak English, so I understood what they were saying. Is mixed with Hindi, and I had to ask what does that mean? But they were talking about the same thing. These were monks who lived, and not only monks, some householders, married men, women who lived off in the Himalayas. They kind of came down and they just started talking about what's going on in the world. And some would say, "This is terrible. You know, it seems like, yes, God is just like, you know, barreling down on us." And they said, "Hey, wait a minute. In this yuga, this final Kali Yuga, yes, it's bad, but it was worse in the yuga before and far worse in the yuga before that." Then they started giving and portraying what would happen if people got together like we're getting together now, maybe 5,000 years after what they were talking about, and we would try to have an altar and speak divine words. Literally demons and incarnated spirits would come and break the altar apart, cause all sorts of havoc, and you couldn't even get together. They did their rituals in even the Treta Yuga, and demons and spirits would come and break everything apart. And even if you look in more modern history, the Roman era, the decadence there was far beyond what we have now. And you know, people were doing things, for instance, they thought it was a spiritual baptism. They built a grate and put people underneath and brought cows and bulls, slit their throat, and the blood would come out and wash on the people, and they would consider that baptism. And all this was going on. And so the idea, what they'd say is, actually, we're lucky in this yuga, because in the great avatars and great realized masters like Sri Ramakrishna would say, now all you have to have is sincerity. Where in earlier eras, you had to have a priest who knew his stuff. You had to have enough money to get together all the offerings and get the ritual done. You had to sit and do chanting perfectly. And if you make one mispronunciation of the word, you know, the whole thing turns into bad karma. Now in this era, if we just sincerely approach and try to pray to God, sincerely try to do meditation, God will take care of the rest. And that is, and they say, yes, because now the availability of all the, you know, let's say, all the avenues that were divine, you know, gateways, a lot of them are around now. I mean, yes, not only the fact is God is barreling down on us and seems to be yelling at us, but where are all the saints? You know, where are all the holy places? Where are all the pilgrimages? Yeah, we're sitting in, you know, southern Florida. What incorrupt saint can we go and fall down and touch? You know, yeah, it seems like not only is the world becoming kind of dark, but the goodness in the world seems to be retreating. And so now the saints are saying, all you have to do is just be sincere and just call on God and try a little. You put forth some effort, God will finish the rest with grace. And they say our effort's about 10%, God's grace is about 90%. Where in earlier eras, you had to put forth, you know, at least 50% of your effort, and so it was a real contract. So on one level, it's not so bad. I mean, I don't know about you, but it felt pretty good just sitting here in this room meditating, chanting and hearing that divine mantra. And just all of a sudden, great peace is there. And if you can do that, you know, without having, you know, some demon flying in and, you know, crashing everything. Yes.
And don't we bring upon a lot of the suffering upon ourselves?
Yeah. See, that's why you'll find the Dalai Lama and all the great ones. They'll say exactly the old kind of saying, charity begins at home. First, have compassion on yourself. First, do something so you have the capacity for compassion. Because one of the things that the world does, it causes you to dry up. It causes you to it just like seems like self-preservation, and there's no energy left after you've spent, you know, the whole day at work, and then you're exhausted. You're supposed to, you know, do exercise, and you go to the gym, do yoga. You got to eat, and all of a sudden you got to go to sleep. You got to wake up, and there's no time to even enjoy yourself. And so, you know, we say there's no time for anything. And so yes, so you have compassion on yourself. So yes, we do, but the Buddha actually portrays one story. He says, yes, the world will shoot you with an arrow, but then you'll take that wound and you'll feel so miserable about it, you'll stick 100 more arrows in yourself, which now are causing much more damage than the one wound that the arrow from the world. And so the idea is, this is why spiritual practice is necessary, because what we do is exactly what you said. We cause medicine, we cause this healing to come upon us. So we ask God to come and be gracious, and then we find the alleviation of suffering.
One of the greatest, my favorite line comes from Hafiz, and he says to take that knife that we put into ourselves out. It's in Persian, but the essence of it is that the greatest wounding we do is that we stab ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we're a reflection for the universe, so that what they see is our wounding ourselves and wounding others because we're not separate. So
yeah,
it's that line of stopping that, not doing that to ourselves, that's so profound.
Well, the idea is, yes, the suffering is there, and we do things to cause suffering to be magnified, and it seems to be natural. It seems to be we you know, make a mistake, and we say something and someone takes it the wrong way, or we become angry and greedy and all these things, and we suffer from it, and we realize, hey, wait a minute, you know, I've done this so many times before.